Hi, my name is Janet. I'm 32, and last night broke me. We gathered for Dad's 60th birthday. 50 guests under glowing string lights. I had planned every detail, every song, every flower, every plate. For 3 weeks, I poured my energy and savings into perfection. I thought maybe, just maybe, Dad would finally notice me tonight. Instead, he smiled at his colleagues, raised his glass, and laughed loudly. "Janet's always been the doormat of this family," he said proudly. The word hung in the air, sharp and cruel, cutting deeper than glass. Laughter rippled through the crowd, but no one came to defend me. Not Mom, not Kenneth the golden boy, not Beverly the little lifesaver. They all let his words sink into my skin like burning acid. 32 years of sacrifice, erased in one brutal, humiliating sentence. In that instant, something inside me shattered, and something else awakened. Before we continue, if you love these stories, please subscribe to our channel, because that is our motivation to make better and better stories each day for you. And now, let us know where you are listening in the comment before we start. Growing up, I always felt like the invisible thread in our family. Kenneth, my older brother, was the golden boy, the lawyer who shined. Beverly, my younger sister, wore the crown as our miracle doctor. And me? I was the space between them, blurred into the background. At family dinners, Dad would ask Kenneth about his classes, his goals. Mom would beam when Beverly shared her grades or dreams of saving lives. When the conversation turned my way, it lasted only a few seconds. "How's school?" they'd ask, already looking back at my siblings. I worked hard, harder than anyone realized, desperate to be seen. When I graduated high school, I was valedictorian, #1 in class. It was supposed to be my shining moment, my proudest day. But my parents never came. They were driving Kenneth to an interview. I held my diploma with shaking hands, searching for their familiar faces. All I saw was empty bleachers, and it felt like abandonment. They promised they would make it up to me. They never did. That memory stayed like a scar, reminding me of where I stood. Years later, on my 21st birthday, I thought things might be different. I decorated my small apartment, baked a cake, invited friends and family. But Beverly got into medical school that same week. My party was canceled, the cake untouched, replaced with her celebration. It was always the same story. Their milestones erased mine. Their victories demanded the spotlight while mine disappeared into the shadows. Still, I pushed forward. I earned a scholarship to State University. I studied marketing, worked 2 jobs, graduated with honors, and smiled. But even then, recognition never followed me home. When I bought my first car, Dad barely glanced at it. When I brought home awards from college, they gathered dust in silence. The only praise I heard was when I fixed someone else's problem. 5 years ago, I bought my own little house in Chicago. It wasn't big, but it was mine, paid with sweat and saving. I hosted a housewarming, filled it with flowers, music, and good food. My parents came, but spent the evening talking about Kenneth's new client. When Beverly arrived, the conversation shifted to her medical residency. I stood there, smiling politely, while my own achievements dissolved again. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen after everyone left. The laughter still echoed in the walls, but none of it was mine. I learned early. If I wanted family together, it was my job. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, birthdays. Guess who organized everything? Always me. I made invitations, ordered food, decorated, cleaned before and after. I was the one sweeping crumbs long after the guests went home. When Grandma got sick, I was the one driving her to doctors. When Uncle needed to move, I bruised my arms lifting his boxes. When Kenneth wanted a new car, I handed him $3,000. He still drives it, and I never saw that money again. Every time I told myself this was love, this was family. But love didn't feel like exhaustion, and family didn't feel like silence. Dad never noticed. Mom just patted my hand and whispered excuses. "That's just how your father is," she'd say, avoiding my searching eyes. Or, "You know your siblings are busy with their careers." Her words felt like bandages slapped on wounds that never healed. And maybe I was strong. Maybe I could carry their burdens. But strength without recognition felt less like love and more like slavery. There were nights I lay awake staring at the ceiling in tears. I wondered if I'd ever be enough to earn their pride. I thought maybe if I tried harder, gave more, they'd finally see. So I gave everything, my money, my weekends, my peace of mind. And every time I was met with silence, or worse, indifference. My siblings assumed I'd always handle things because I always did. My father treated my efforts like chores, not choices. And my mother, sweet but spineless, simply let it all continue. I remember one Christmas when Dad bragged about Kenneth's big internship. Then he toasted Beverly's volunteer work at the hospital. When it came to me, he just said, "Janet keeps things tidy." The guest chuckled politely, but my cheeks burned like open wounds. Another time, Kenneth forgot to pay a bill and panicked. I covered it with my savings, even skipped groceries that week. No one thanked me. They acted like it was my duty. That became the pattern. I sacrificed, they benefited. No gratitude given. By the time Dad's 60th birthday came around, I already knew my role. I was the quiet daughter, the planner, the fixer, the invisible helper. But deep down, a voice whispered, maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time he'll look at me and truly see his daughter. The day of Dad's 60th birthday arrived, and I was exhausted. For 3 weeks, I had lived and breathed this party into existence. I strung lights across the backyard, polished the tables, arranged fresh flowers. I ordered food, triple-checked the catering, even created a custom playlist. When guests arrived, they gasped at the glowing yard, the magazine-like setting. I smiled politely, hiding the aching muscles and sleepless nights beneath it. I stood at the gate, welcoming relatives, pouring drinks, guiding people inside. Everything had to be perfect, because I believed perfection meant recognition. At 6:30, Kenneth arrived late, holding a bottle of Bordeaux like treasure. "Traffic was murder," he announced, his grin wide, his confidence unshaken. He handed the bottle to Dad, who lit up instantly with pride. "This must have cost a fortune. You didn't have to do this." "Nothing's too good for the old man," Kenneth replied, soaking in applause. Guests praised him for thoughtfulness, for generosity, for being the golden son. I watched while adjusting napkins blown by the evening breeze. He had spent 20 minutes. I had spent 21 days. 15 minutes later, Beverly appeared with a store-bought chocolate cake. She smiled as if it were a grand gesture, a selfless sacrifice. "I know Janet said she had dessert covered," she said casually, "but I figured Dad would want something special." Dad's eyes softened, his voice warm. "Beverly, sweetheart, you're so thoughtful. Even with saving lives every day, you still make time for Dad." The cake was generic, straight from the grocery store. Meanwhile, my 3-layer carrot cake with candied walnuts sat untouched inside. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, but kept arranging drinks on the table. Guests praised the decorations, the elegant centerpieces, the glowing lights. Dad smiled, but instead of crediting me, he shrugged casually. "We're lucky to have such a nice backyard for entertaining." No mention of my work, no acknowledgement of the hours or sacrifice. Just luck, as if the lights hung themselves and the flowers arranged magically. I excused myself, rushing to the kitchen when the caterer called late. Dinner was delayed, leaving me scrambling to serve backup appetizers quickly. Through the window, I saw Dad telling Kenneth's courtroom story again. Guests leaned forward, captivated by his proud recounting of victories in law. Beverly hovered nearby, offering smiles and collecting compliments for her dedication. And me? I was in the kitchen, arranging crackers on plates. When Uncle Lloyd spilled red wine on the white tablecloth, I fixed it. When the ice ran out, I drove quickly to the corner store. When Grandma complained the music was too loud, I lowered the volume. I was everywhere, invisible yet indispensable, the silent machine behind the show. Then disaster struck. The catering arrived, with the wrong food entirely. Mediterranean wraps instead of barbecue, for 50 hungry guests waiting expectantly. The driver apologized, asking if I could handle the problem somehow. To him, I wasn't a daughter. I was the unpaid event planner. Panic rose in my chest, but I forced myself to act quickly. I called restaurant after restaurant, begging for enough food for 50. Finally, I found one willing, but it cost $200 extra. I paid from my own pocket, unwilling to let Dad's night collapse. While I juggled phones and bills in the kitchen, I glanced outside. Dad posed for pictures, Kenneth and Beverly at his side, beaming. Flash after flash captured their smiling faces. I wasn't in a single one. No one noticed my absence. No one asked if I needed help. By the time the replacement food arrived, sweat trickled down my back. I arranged trays, adjusted serving spoons, made sure everything looked flawless. Guests complimented the barbecue, licking their fingers, praising the delicious meal. Dad accepted their praise with false modesty, as if he had grilled. "This is one of the best parties I've attended all year," his colleague Thomas said warmly, clapping Dad on the back with admiration. Dad chuckled. "Well, Shirley and I just wanted everyone to enjoy. When you've got good teamwork, everything falls right into place." Good teamwork. I bit my lips so hard it nearly bled. Teamwork was me, working myself raw while they basked in praise. Teamwork was me paying bills, solving disasters, staying invisible behind the curtain. And yet he stood there, taking credit, smiling like the king of hosts. My anger swelled, but I stayed quiet, carrying empty plates from tables. The music changed suddenly. My playlist swapped for something generic and loud. Beverly wrinkled her nose. "The old songs are boring, Dad. Let's spice it up." Dad grabbed my phone, erasing hours of effort with one careless swipe. That moment, something cracked deep inside me. For the first time, I saw myself not as a daughter. I was staff. I was a maid. I was a convenience. I was useful, but I was never valued. And the night was far from over. It happened so suddenly, I almost wondered if I heard correctly. Roger, Dad's business partner, staggered forward with a loud, tipsy laugh. "This is restaurant quality, Harold. Someone here knows how to throw events." He gestured at the lights, the tables, the seamless flow of guests. I felt a spark of hope. Finally, maybe Dad would give me credit. But Dad turned, smiling wide, and said words that split me open. "Well, Janet's always been the doormat of this family," he laughed. "She soaks up everyone's messes and keeps things running smoothly." The crowd chuckled, some nervously, others genuinely amused by his cruelty. My chest tightened, breath caught in my throat, blood roaring in my ears. Doormat. That was what he thought of me after 32 years. Not daughter, not caretaker, not a woman with her own worth. Kenneth gave a nervous laugh. "That's a bit harsh, Dad, don't you think?" But his tone lacked conviction, as if defending me wasn't worth the effort. Beverly shifted uncomfortably, staring at her shoes. Mom sat frozen, pale. No one stepped forward. No one challenged him. Not a single soul. Dad continued, emboldened by laughter and clinking glasses. "She thrives on being needed, always there, soaking up spills, never complaining. She's like a doormat, dependable, always underfoot, always keeping peace." Each word pressed down heavier, crushing, humiliating, stripping me bare. Something inside me snapped, not broken, but snapping into fierce alignment. I walked calmly to the nearest table and lifted a champagne glass. Conversations faltered, eyes turned, people sensed something was about to ignite. I raised the glass high enough for everyone nearby to see. "You know what, Dad?" I said, voice sharp, cutting through heavy silence. "You're absolutely right. I've been the family doormat for 32 years. The crowd stilled, laughter choking mid-throat. Dad's smile faltered slightly. He expected a joke, another laugh at my expense, his control restored. "But here's the thing about doormats being, I continued, locking eyes with him. "They're only useful if people keep walking on them." I let the words settle, hard and deliberate, slicing through the evening air. "And I'm done letting you wipe your feet on me." A gasp rippled through the group. The silence grew heavy, suffocating. Dad's face flushed red, his confident grin slipping into uncertainty. Janet, he muttered. "I was just joking. Don't be so sensitive." "Sensitive?" My voice rose, steady, fueled by decades of swallowed pain. 32 years of jokes, Dad. 32 years of invisibility, dismissal, neglect. I organized every holiday, every birthday, every crisis while you took credit. I gave money that was never returned, time that was never acknowledged. I solved problems you never even knew existed, and you called me a doormat. Murmurs ran through the guests. Some looked horrified, others fascinated. Kenneth shifted uncomfortably. Beverly's cheeks flushed. Mom still stared downward. "No more," I said, voice carrying further than I thought possible. "If I'm just a doormat, then don't ever ask for help again." The champagne glass trembled in my hand, but my voice did not. I planned every detail of this party. I paid for the replacements. I hung the lights, baked the cake, arranged the flowers, fixed the disasters. And tonight you reduced me to an object beneath your shoes. Dad tried to interrupt, his voice desperate now. "Everyone knows I appreciate you." I cut him off, something I had never dared to do before. "No, Dad, appreciation isn't silence, it isn't dismissal, it isn't humiliation. Appreciation is recognition. Appreciation is respect. I've had neither here." Kenneth stepped forward, forcing a lawyer's calmness into his voice. "Janet, come on, you're blowing this out of proportion." He was joking. "We all know Dad values you. You don't need to embarrass yourself." I turned to him, heat in my words sharper than steel. "Embarrass myself? Kenneth, I saved your career once with unpaid labor. I planned your engagement party. I lent you money for your car. I carried you more than Dad ever did. and you never repaid me. Don't you dare tell me I'm the one embarrassing myself tonight." Beverly cleared her throat, her voice trembling but cloaked in condescension. "Janet, maybe you're just stressed from work. Maybe this isn't about family." I snapped my gaze to her, years of patience boiling into rage. "Not about family? Beverly, I canceled my birthday for your celebration. I baked a cake that never left the kitchen tonight. I babysat your kids, rearranged my life, while you played hero doctor. And still you stand there, silent, when Dad calls me trash underfoot." Her lips parted, but no words came. Only shame flickered across her face. Mom finally whispered, "Maybe we should take this inside, Janet. Please." Her voice trembled, her eyes pleading with me to stop the unraveling. But I shook my head, shoulders squared, refusing the old cycle of silence. "No, Mom, you've hidden behind quiet for 32 years, not tonight." The crowd shifted, uneasy. Glasses clinked softly, shoes scuffed against stone. A neighbor whispered, "My God," and someone else muttered, "Poor Janet." But I didn't feel poor. For the first time, I felt alive. The truth poured out of me, unstoppable, burning through decades of silence. I'm done being invisible. I'm done being laughed at, ignored, erased. Tonight, everyone here will remember me not as your doormat, but as the daughter who finally stood up and said enough. The silence that followed was electric, charged, heavy with recognition. Dad's eyes darted, searching desperately for support, but found none. For the first time in my life, the stage belonged to me. And this time, I wasn't giving it back. The silence lingered, thick and suffocating, but I didn't tremble anymore. I set down my champagne glass with steady hands and lifted my chin. "Since I'm only a doormat, consider me gone from underfoot." My words echoed across the patio, louder than the music ever had. Dad's face turned crimson, his jaw tight with rage and humiliation. "You're being ridiculous, Janet. After everything this family has given you." I laughed, sharp and bitter, a sound that startled even me. "Given me? You've taken from me. Time, money, energy, years of silence." Kenneth muttered, "You're overreacting. Don't ruin Dad's night with drama." I met his eyes, voice cold. "The only drama is your entitlement. When was the last time you lifted a finger for this family? When was the last time you organized, cleaned, sacrificed, gave?" Beverly whispered, "Please, Janet, don't do this in front of everyone." But I was done protecting their image at the cost of my own. "No, Beverly. Tonight people will see the truth. They'll see me." I grabbed my purse from the chair, my car keys rattling inside. "I won't be organizing Christmas. I won't be planning Easter. Don't ask me to fix your problems or cover your messes. Find another servant. I'm finished." My voice cut sharp and final. Gasps rippled. Someone coughed nervously. Guests began whispering behind their hands. Dad shouted, "If you leave now, don't expect this family again." I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in years. "That's exactly the point," I said, before turning toward the house. The weight I carried for decades slipped off my shoulders like chains. Inside, the kitchen still smelled of barbecue and frosting. I grabbed my coat, walked through the hallway I'd cleaned 1,000 times. Behind me, voices clashed. Dad yelling, Kenneth scolding, Beverly pleading, Mom crying. But none of it stopped my steps. My freedom grew with each stride. I drove away under the Chicago night sky, my chest pounding. For the first time, I wasn't rushing to solve someone else's disaster. I was leaving the disaster behind and choosing myself instead. The tears came, but they weren't weakness. They were release. The following week, my phone rang nonstop. Kenneth called first, panicked. "Janet, I need your help. My firm has a client event." "You're so good at this planning stuff. Just make some calls." I interrupted him coldly. "No, handle it yourself, Kenneth." "What do you mean, no?" he snapped, disbelief thick in his voice. "You're family. You've always helped. Don't be petty about Saturday." "I meant every word," I said firmly. "Don't call me again for this." He argued, guilt-tripped, grew frustrated, then finally hung up. Days later, Beverly tried with her soft doctor voice. "Janet, I've been worried about you. Saturday was intense. Are you okay?" I almost laughed at the performance, but let her continue. "My babysitter canceled. Could you watch the kids this weekend?" "No," I said simply. The word felt new, but delicious. Her tone sharpened. "Lives are at stake. You can't leave me stranded." "Your emergency isn't my responsibility," I answered calmly. "Hire someone, plan ahead, but stop treating me like unpaid staff." She sighed dramatically, muttering, "This isn't like you." "You're right," I said. "It's not. I'm finally changing." For once, I hung up first. The silence afterward felt glorious. That weekend, I did something radical, nothing for them. I drank coffee slowly, letting steam rise against the morning sun. I wandered the farmer's market, choosing vegetables just for myself. I cleaned my closet, not the family's mess. It was intoxicating. Freedom, after 32 years of chains, felt like flight. Each no I spoke built a wall of protection around my soul. And for the first time, I realized the truth. I was free. The changes spread quickly into every corner of my life. I started staying late at work, not to avoid family calls, but to invest in projects that actually mattered to my career. Colleagues noticed, praising my leadership, inviting me to bigger opportunities. I accepted dinner invitations from friends I'd ignored for years. We laughed over wine, stories spilling, and I felt alive again. For once, I wasn't rushing home to finish chores for others. I was staying because I wanted to, because I belonged. Even the smallest choices tasted sweeter. I bought fresh flowers for my kitchen table, just for me. I lingered at bookstores, letting hours pass without guilt or pressure. I walked in the park on Sunday mornings, breathing freedom into my lungs. Every step, every choice whispered the same truth. I was no longer theirs. I was mine, and it felt extraordinary. One evening, I stood before the mirror in my quiet home. For years, I had seen only exhaustion staring back at me. But now I saw strength, calm, and a woman finally standing tall. I touched my reflection and whispered, "You're no one's doormat anymore." The weeks after Dad's party felt like stepping into another universe. For the first time in my life, silence didn't feel like rejection. It felt like freedom. My phone no longer chained me to obligations. Each day stretched wide open, filled only with choices that belonged to me. At work, my energy shifted completely. Without family pulling me apart, I poured myself into projects that had been waiting for my attention. I stayed late by choice, polishing presentations, brainstorming strategies, meeting clients. Within months, I was trusted with the biggest account of my career. Colleagues noticed the difference. "You've really come alive, Janet," one said. They praised my leadership, my organization, my creativity, all skills once stolen. The same abilities my family took for granted became the foundation of success. When I received my promotion to marketing director, I didn't call home. Instead, I called a friend from college, someone I had neglected. We celebrated with champagne at a rooftop bar overlooking downtown Chicago. The city glittered, and for once, so did my own reflection. I realized then, my worth had always been mine, never theirs to give. Meanwhile, Kenneth and Beverly began to stumble without me as their safety net. Kenneth's client appreciation event was a disaster, poorly planned and mismanaged. His partners noticed. His promotion stalled, his confidence shaken. Beverly struggled to balance shifts and childcare, arguments rising in her home. I didn't rejoice in their suffering, but I did feel vindicated. For once, they faced the chaos I had quietly absorbed for years, and they learned, slowly, painfully, that life without Janet required responsibility. It wasn't cruelty on my part. It was balance, long overdue. The most surprising change came from Mom. She began inviting me to dinner. Not the old dinners where Dad dominated, but quiet evenings, just us two. She admitted things I never imagined hearing. Her regrets, her cowardice, her silence. "I thought avoiding conflict was protecting peace," she said, tears in her eyes. "But it only meant letting him hurt you while I looked away." Her honesty broke something inside me, but it also stitched me back together. For the first time, Mom wasn't just the quiet bystander. She was a woman learning to stand tall, just like me. She told me she had enrolled in classes for financial planning. "After 40 years of serving everyone else, I want to serve myself." Her voice shook, but her eyes gleamed with determination I'd never seen before. I squeezed her hand across the table. "I'm proud of you, Mom." Then came Dad's heart attack in spring. Minor, the doctors reassured us, but serious enough to shake the man who once believed he was untouchable. Kenneth called, demanding I rush to the hospital, guilt dripping in his tone. "He's asking for you, Janet. Don't let pride ruin this family." I hesitated, but I didn't cave. Instead, I sent flowers and a card. "Get well soon. Take care of yourself. Janet." That was all. I didn't rush to manage meals, notes, visitors, or medical schedules. I let Kenneth and Beverly figure it out, and they struggled loudly. Weeks later, Mom called me quietly. "He wants to see you, truly see you." Her words carried a weight I couldn't ignore. For years, I had craved this, but now I had something stronger than craving: choice. I agreed to meet him, but on neutral ground, on my terms. We sat across from each other in a quiet coffee shop downtown. He looked smaller, older, humbled by illness and the silence I had given. "Thank you for coming," he said softly, voice stripped of its usual command. "I know I don't deserve your time, but I want to try." I didn't let him start with excuses. "Tell me what you see, not what you want me to hear. What do you actually see?" He lowered his gaze, fingers trembling around his coffee cup. "I see a daughter I dismissed, diminished, and humiliated for decades. I treated you like labor, not love. I called you a doormat. I laughed while you bled, and I mistook your silence for acceptance. It was easier to use your strength than face my own failures. I'm ashamed, Janet. I want to change, even if it's late." For the first time, I believed him. Not because of the words, but because he didn't ask for forgiveness. He asked for effort. "I don't need apologies," I told him. "I need consistency. Respect me in public. Accept no when I give it. Recognize my worth." He nodded, tears forming in eyes I once thought incapable of softness. "I can do that," he whispered. "I don't want to lose you forever." Walking away that day, I realized something had shifted deep inside me. I no longer needed Dad's validation to feel whole. But because I knew my own worth, I could allow a chance. Not for the old family dynamic, but for something new, healthier, stronger. Boundaries, respect, equality, those were the conditions of my return. And if he failed, I would walk away again, unshaken. Months passed. Slowly, carefully, Dad began to show change. He asked about my job, not as filler, but with curiosity. He introduced me to friends as my daughter, the marketing director. When Kenneth begged for help again, Dad told him to hire someone. It wasn't perfect. Old habits flickered, but Mom and I pushed back. For the first time, he listened. For the first time, he learned. And for the first time, I felt like family didn't mean servitude. It meant respect, accountability, and the freedom to stand as equals. In my own life, things blossomed further. I started dating David, a kind man from my gym who valued me without draining me. When I cooked, he washed dishes. When I planned, he carried the weight. He saw me not as utility, but as partner. One evening, while walking along Lake Michigan's shore, he said softly, "You've spent your life carrying others. Now let someone carry you." Tears stung my eyes, not from weakness, but from recognition. Maybe love wasn't sacrifice. Maybe love was sharing the load together. A year after the birthday party, I hosted a gathering of my own. Not for Dad, not for Kenneth, not for Beverly, for myself. Friends, colleagues, and David filled my small home. We laughed, ate, and raised glasses, to growth, to freedom, to chosen family. When the night ended, I stood in my quiet kitchen again. But this time, silence wasn't lonely. It was peaceful, grounding, alive. I touched the counter where once I cried over being invisible. Now I smiled, whispering to myself, "You're seen, you're valued, you're enough." Because in the end, the lesson wasn't about revenge or rejection. It was about reclaiming myself from people who never valued me. I had learned the difference between being needed and being loved. And I chose love, the kind that sees me, respects me, celebrates me. The doormat was gone forever. In her place stood a woman who finally knew her worth. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Don't forget to subscribe for more true family betrayal stories that remind us we are stronger than we think.